Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we welcome you to this special broadcast brought to you on Salam Media and courtesy of the United Ulama Council of South Africa. Now, this is a special broadcast, and while many of us are focused on a lot of global issues, global developments, Palestine in particular, let us not lose sight of some of the other developments that could have far-reaching or is already having far-reaching impact on communities right across Europe and also looking at us in South Africa, we are not far removed from some of the dangers that lurk. Now, we are talking about the legal and constitutional rights of parents in respect of same-sex attractions and GD as well. And we need to understand this very, very clearly. We know under the auspices of UXA, there is a lot of work that is being done in the background because a committee has been formed. There are people from right across the board consisting of Ulama and many other people. And they are doing a lot of work to actually drive this message home. And more importantly, from an educational perspective as well. And also from a legal perspective, this is absolutely important. This is critical that one needs to understand what are some of these legal and constitutional rights. And this is the reason why we have assembled a panel this morning right here on Salam Media consisting of Sister Shamshaad said, always popular. She doesn't need any introduction. We've got attorney Munira Osman and also Sheikh Shaukat Dawood, who will be joining us shortly. But right up on screen, we have Sister Shamshaad Sayed, Sister Munira Osman. Sister Shamshaad, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome and Jazakallah khairan so much for your time.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Inai. Shukran for having us. You being the media head of the subcommittee for UXA's same-sex attraction and gender dysphoria subcommittee. So we thank you for availing yourself and making the time, because one of the goals of the Women's Subcommittee was so that we can alert the community to have this campaign where we emphasize the importance of healthy and happy, strong marital relations, parental family relationships, etc. And part of the strategic strat plan was so that we can alert the family unit, the Muslim community, about the legal, one of it is the legal and constitutional rights with regard to, of Muslim parents with regard to SSA and GD. Sister Munira is well known in this field, and she needs actually no introduction with regard to a legal prowess in respect of this topic. But on behalf of UXA, Maulana Shaukat Dawood, I hope he can still link up with us. He's on the road. On behalf of UXA subcommittee, he's our Amir, where we need to thank UXA for having the subcommittee after a long, tedious process, to have the subcommittee to alert parents, not just parents, but the entire community, post the sexual revolution, etc. Sometimes religion is viewed as a damper on life, but it actually, we make a very clear stand that the Muslim community, Islam is against the entire idea of LGBTQ, but at the same time we're working within the parameters of the Constitution, within the parameters of the Bill of Rights, and parents need to understand in the scheme of things how to deal with this. They have certain rights, they have certain responsibilities, and I think it's very important. Many parents do come to teachers and say, we have this problem, or how do we deal with the situation? So there is a method, and there's a modus operandi which is very legal, which is according to the Constitution, and that Munira is going to do. And on behalf of UXA, we'd like to thank them for having the subcommittee, because not only this topic, but many other topics in relation to alerting the family and the community with regard to the rights and responsibilities, how to deal with it, and how to acknowledging using all available media like Salam Media to promote the Islamic position of SSA and GD within our constitutional rights. And our approach is an emphatic one, understanding the issues rather than a hostile reaction to the challenges sometimes people face, and to provide support to families and individuals who are challenged by SSA and GD. And networking with other organizations nationally, internationally, we share our approach to present a unified approach on the issue. So having said that, we have our weekly meetings, we have our tasks set out for the year, long-term, short-term, medium goal, etc. This is one of them, which is for 2025. And Sister Munira has been on other platforms, and I think you will know what she's capable of. But I think this podcast will remain as very concrete information based, where people can refer to. So we want to do a great job, and we know Munira is going to do an excellent job of excellent presentation and answer all the questions. So I want to appeal to the listeners and the viewers and to all those tuning in. If you have questions, do direct them to Brother Inayat, so Sister Munira can answer those questions in addition to a multitude of questions that you'll be answering Brother Inayat today. Shukran, Sister Munira, shukran, Brother Inayat.
Yes, Jazakallah khairan for that introduction, Sister Shamshaad. Sister Munira obviously comes with a very, very distinguished career, particularly in her field of expertise in law, in academia as well. Currently is a teaching, learning and innovations manager, a senior academic at the Regent Business School. She's had so many roles, and I think I'll spend the next 10 minutes just going through your CV, Sister Munira. But, Jazakallah khairan so much for making yourself available, and welcome to the broadcast.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And shukran for having me and allowing me this opportunity to share my thoughts on this matter. I think it's a very, very critical matter for our Ummah and for the South African community at large. And for us to have these kinds of conversations around it is very, very important. I think there are lots of things around this particular issue where the community needs to understand how certain things operate, especially how rules operate, how the legal framework operates. And I'm hoping that I can try and do something in that respect this afternoon, or it's still in the morning. It feels like the afternoon already, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to the questions that may come across, but I'm sure Brother Inayat has a whole list of questions for me, and it might end up taking the entire bits of the show, but yes, let's get on with it, Brother Inayat.
Yes, in fact, what we'll do is let's just welcome Sheikh Shaukat Dawood, and then we're going to go for a quick ad break, and we will then dive straight into the questions, Sister Munira. Sheikh Shaukat, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Haji Inayat, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear loud and clear. Sister Shamshaad obviously just gave us a brief introduction on the topic itself, and also the importance of this morning's broadcast. Just before we take an ad break, just by way of introduction, Sheikh Dawood, is there anything you wish to add?
Jazakallahu khairan, Haji Inayat. I think Sister Shamshaad has done a sterling job in introducing the topic, or giving us a general idea of what is the SSA and GD subcommittee. That is the same-sex attractions and gender dysphoria. So I do not want to take any more time. I think our listeners, and especially myself, would like to hear from our special guest today, that is Sister and Attorney Munira Osman. I'd like to welcome her, and I'd like to say Jazakumullahu khairan to her for affording us her time and her family time, work time, and we ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses her, gives her good health, give her family, inshallah, good health and wealth, inshallah. Jazakumullahu khairan, Brother Inayat.
I mean, Jazakallah khairan so much for that. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just put the panel on hold as we go for a quick air break. We'll be back in a minute.
Important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference. When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge. your true home away from home. Albeit is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Albeit has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albaitlodge.co.za.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
Hey, Gulam.
Yeah?
Did I return your lawnmower last month?
No, bhai, you didn't.
Oh, no. Now what'll I do? I wanted to borrow it again, man.
With Randry Jewelers, you won't have to borrow or lend because the prices are so well trimmed on all gold and diamond jewelry. Alternatively, we could remake your old jewelry into a brilliant new design. Visit Randry Jewelers at 151 Stevens Lamini Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randry Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Abu Huraira narrated that he heard the Prophet Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, say, "In black seed there is a healing for every disease except death." This Ramadan, experience the health benefits of this ancient blessed seed by using the Tib Black Seed range. Black seed assists the body to boost immunity, regulate blood sugar levels, reduce inflammation, and act as a potent antioxidant. Experience a holistic approach to health by introducing the Tib Black Seed range into your Ramadan routine. Available in capsules, pure cold-pressed oil, and a vapor rub. Trust Tib Health Sciences for quality black seed products. For more information, visit blackseed.co.za. Available at leading pharmacies.
Make a conscious choice. Sip for change and support Palestine Drinks Africa. With every can, you help end the genocide and stand in solidarity with Palestine. Choose between our original or sugar-free options, available in a case of 24. Every sip is a step towards justice. Every purchase a powerful message of unity and support for the Palestinian cause. Contact 082-888-1440 or 082-7739-556 today and be part of the change. Palestine Drinks Africa. Sip for change. Liberty for everyone.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Well, we welcome you back to this morning special broadcast, and we are dissecting the legal and constitutional rights of parents in respect of same-sex attractions and gender dysphoria. We have got Sister Shamshaad Said, Attorney Munira Osman, and Sheikh Shaukat Dawood. Sister Munira, we're going to dive straight into the questions, and we're going to try and cover as much ground as we can. Now, this is absolutely critical. This is important, particularly for managing human rights in the classroom. We're talking about a perspective from schools, Muslim schools and other schools as well. And I think the key issue here is understanding where we are as a democracy in terms of the Constitution, in terms of the Bill of Rights. Now, we've heard South Africa boasting of having one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. But the key issue here is how would that support human rights, and also looking at specific challenges that we as Muslims face.
Yeah, so I just want to take off on that point that you made about South Africa having a really good constitution. And scholars have hailed it as the Rolls Royce. But when you look at it and you start analyzing it, then really what we needed was a VW and not a Rolls Royce. But in any event, it is a great document, a freedom document for South Africa. And the Constitution is basically the document and the instrument that protects human rights. And it does this through a very, very interesting component of the Constitution, which is the Bill of Rights. And that Bill of Rights is basically a list of rights that citizens enjoy in South Africa. And so it is through that particular instrument in the Constitution that we are able to actually claim our rights as a Muslim community and be able to express various different aspects of our religion. And so it is through the Bill of Rights that we are ensuring that there's an emphasis on the dignity, the equality, and the freedom. And as you all know, that even in the Bill of Rights is a section on religious freedom and freedom regarding, or freedoms regarding our culture, language, etc. So all of this put together posits a very, very interesting legal framework within which we can operate. Now, when it comes to the particular issue we're talking about this morning, clearly on the face of it, Muslim schools themselves, whether they're private or public is another question, but there are differences between public and private. The schools themselves face quite a few challenges. And the challenge is in how do we balance rights? And that's the most important thing that we have to talk about, because whenever I have one particular right, somebody else has another right. The whole idea of balancing these rights. So if you think about it in the context that we're talking about, parents have rights, children have rights, the school has rights, teachers have rights, staff in the school have rights. And what is the Constitution doing? The Constitution is actually trying to balance everybody's rights. And these rights sometimes conflict with each other. They compete with each other. And so we have to be able to balance those rights. And it is the legal and the constitutional framework that allows us to exercise this balancing of rights. So that's the framework within which we're operating.
Yes, Sister Munira, you mentioned two words, conflict and competing with each other. And I think you and I had discussions on another matter on Muslim personal law as well, the Muslim Marriages Act, and this is where this whole conflict and competing has actually stood out as to what actually reigns supreme. And let's just talk about the supremacy of the Constitution, from a legal point of view, but also looking at freedom of religion, freedom from discrimination, and how does this constitutional supremacy influence the way Muslim schools would even incorporate Islamic principles into their policies?
Okay, Shukran. I think that's a very important question for us to understand. So historically, we came from a system where we had parliamentary supremacy, or what we called parliamentary sovereignty. So that basically meant that all the power sat in parliament. Even executive had to toe the line with parliament. So parliament had the power to make a law, break a law, change the law, and parliament was the standard to which we had to all adhere. So that is our past, and the break from the past introduced the concept of constitutional supremacy. So I thought it's important for us to understand why we have constitutional supremacy in South Africa. Now, what exactly does constitutional supremacy mean, right? Basically means that any act, whether it's the citizens, whether it's the government, any policies that are taken by government, etc. So any policies that are adopted in the private sphere, so policies adopted by religious schools or constitutions, must align with constitutional principles. So at all given times, the Constitution is the standard to which we have to adhere. That's what basically legal supremacy, or the term constitutional supremacy, means. So for example, if there's a school policy that is perhaps discriminating against a student or even a teacher in terms of admission to the school as a teacher or admission to the school as a student, well, with teachers rather it's to be employed, then in that particular instance, and if the refusal is based, and I'm going to go right into it, say perhaps on sexual orientation, we never think about it in terms of employing teachers. We always look at these issues in terms of it affecting students. But what if you have a teacher who has a particular sexual orientation and now has been refused by an Islamic school into that particular school? So if the policy is going to state that clearly, so for example, we will not allow any students of a deviant sexual orientation to be admitted, or teachers who have a deviant sexual orientation will not be admitted into the school as teachers, or not be employed rather in the school as teachers, then that could be regarded as unconstitutional on the face of it. So we must be able to understand how we operate, therefore, within the broader context and the broader legal framework. Now, you raised the question about religious freedom. And yes, it's a very, very interesting right that is in the Constitution. It's actually Section 15 of the Constitution. And it basically allows, therefore, Section 15 gives that right for the existence of Islamic schools, because we are allowed to pursue and believe in the religion of our choice. So our religion of choice obviously is Islam. Now, this Section 15 therefore allows us to maintain our Islamic identity, maintain an Islamic ethos. We can incorporate religious observances at school, religious teachings at school. However, we have to be very, very careful about how we go about doing certain things. And we have another obligation, which is the primary obligation. And our primary obligation is to follow the rule of Allah. So for us, the balancing act is not only balancing the competing rights that might come up, but it is also about us incorporating our Islam into the system that we are working with, and how we will not at any given time violate any of our Islamic principles. And so that's the important kind of thing that we have to look at. Now, if you look at another right in the Constitution, which is Section 9, and that's generally, you'll find in many of the religious freedom cases that the conflict is between the right to religious freedom and the right not to be discriminated against, which is the equality right, which is couched in Section 9 of the Constitution. And in terms of how Section 9 then affects schools, etc., you have to ensure that there's equal treatment of all students, regardless of gender, identity, or sexual orientation. And you have to treat everybody in the school community in that particular way, not just students, but the people you employ. Everybody who makes up the school community must be treated equally in terms of Section 9. So what does this mean then for us? It means that when we are adopting policy, and lots of the time schools haven't written out policy, that is something that this committee is also working on, is to ensure that Muslim private schools especially operate in terms of a policy document. But policies, when they are being adopted, should avoid outright exclusions, because that's where the policy can be tested against the Constitution. And so you would rather do things where you foster mutual respect for the different people that make up the community of the school. And I know that this is a sore point, because this had become the focus of a discussion about the whole question of facilities being joined and allowing, I forget the term, but allowing what is it, Shamshaad? Where both males and females can use the same bathrooms,
Yeah, I know. We know. I understand what you're saying.
I'm just battling to get the concept in my mind. But what I'm basically saying is that we will stand by that, because in our admission policy, we can put in certain clauses that will not, because we're going to say we're operating as a Muslim school and therefore we operate in terms of an Islamic school. So we will not say we will not allow students, because sometimes we don't know what their sexual orientation is, etc. But even if we allow them, Islam basically subscribes to the binary definition of male and female, right? And so we're not shy to say that, and the policy will say that. So if a student is going to be uncomfortable, right up front, the policy will be able to say to the student that I will not be comfortable in this particular school. So those are the kinds of things that we can try and sort of bridge the gap, if you may call it that, around these particular questions. So I can go on with the rights discussion. I'm not sure if you want me to, Brother Inayat.
Yes, Sister Munira. In fact, we're going to go for a quick ad break again, and we want to just continue with regard to rights, because outside of the school policies, and we're talking about learners, we're talking about educators as well. I also want to touch a bit on parental rights as well, in terms of the specific rights that are at play, because when one looks at parents, they are also stakeholders in the schooling environment. So it's something to think about. So let's go for a break, and when we come back, we can discuss it further.
School of Excellence in Finetown, South Africa, is securing the futures of underprivileged children by providing world-class education in a safe and nurturing environment. Sponsor a child for only 15,000 Rand per year or any amount. A quality education at Amman presents a pathway out of poverty and a brighter future for South Africa.
Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031-208-9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
When you give water, you're reaching out to drought-affected areas, bringing them to life. Fresh water to drink, to clean, and to grow. That's the power of water. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078-786-1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
The chaos and destruction in the Gaza Strip is beyond comprehension. Virtually everyone is displaced, hungry, and in urgent need of life-saving humanitarian support. The Al-Imdad Foundation has been working tirelessly to address the health, nutrition, and water needs of the population. Our hospital, water deliveries, and hot meal programs are made possible with your support. Your donation, big or small, is a lifeline for those in dire need. Help Gaza survive. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, we continue with this special broadcast brought to you courtesy of the United Ulama Council of South Africa. And we have got Sister Shamshaad, Sister Munira, Osman, and Sheikh Shaukat Dawood as we unpack the legal issues and also certain practical issues that will impact in terms of rights of schools, of educators, of parents, of learners. And Sister Munira, just to continue, because we know that this is a highly sensitive topic when we are talking about same-sex attraction and gender dysphoria in the legal context as well. But, parents play a crucial role as well. And there could be drastic, there could be far-reaching consequences even for parents from a legal perspective. And it's important to understand what these parental rights are.
Absolutely correct. And I think I'll tell you about the rights of parents, but we must understand that there's a whole lot of stakeholders involved here. It's parents, it's the children, it's the schools and the community of the schools, and it's the broader society that's also at stake. So all of their rights are interconnected, and all of their rights have to be taken into account when we're dealing with this. So let me start off by talking about the rights of parents, because that's what you requested. But basically, when we look at that, parents do have a right. It's not that, we're sending our children off to school and so we divest of all of our rights as parents. No, not at all. You have the right to engage in the children's education. You have the right in terms of the choice of education. So if you choose to put your child in a private school, or you choose to put your child in a Model C school or a public school or whatever, that is your choice as a parent. And parents make very, very concerted decisions around these. It takes I'm a parent. I knew where I wanted my children to go to school from the time they were born, right? So those are important decisions that we make for our children. And so that is a right that parents have. They can obviously make those decisions. And parents also have a right in terms of the choices that their children are making. Because remember, at this point in time, while they are in school, they are still regarded legally as minors. And so the parents are actually in charge of them in terms of their major decisions, etc. Okay, and so this whole idea of whether it's gender dysphoria or whether it's around sexual orientation, parents...
Haji Inayat, is Sister Attorney Munira muted? I cannot hear her.
No, Sheikh Dawood, she's audible. We can hear her loud and clear. Go ahead, Sister Munira.
Okay. So, especially when it comes to the issues of gender dysphoria and sexual orientation, I think parents play a very, very important role. And instead of blaming it on society, blaming it on the community, or lots of the times blaming it on the school or whatever the case might be, parents, this is the era we live in. So you need to start to become very, very, I don't know what's the word, I don't want to make it sound terrible, but, not that you must distrust your children, but become aware. Get to know your child, make your child your friend. So even if your child is having a problem or is experiencing something different, the child must be able to be freely speak about these issues to you. Now, lots of the times parents are like, this is taboo, that is taboo. And, you can still say it's taboo, but it's how you say it as well. And this is how, this is our sunnah and our tradition, that we have to raise our children with love and understanding. And I think sometimes the whole, fire and brimstone analogy doesn't work for today's children. You sort of distance them further away from you. So yes, you have rights, but you have responsibilities too. The two go together. So we always want to focus on our rights, but what's our responsibility as a parent? So yes, parents have the right to choose the education. They have the right to choose which schools, etc. They have the right to say that, my child will follow this particular religion, etc. And this kind of choice and this right is also embedded in the South African Schools Act. It's also embedded in international conventions like the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, etc. And of course, parents have the right to be consulted upon with regard to sensitive issues that are affecting the child. And they have the right to be informed about matters that are affecting their child's education, especially on topics that are going to be covered in school in the curriculum, which is now sort of becoming the norm in South Africa around same-sex attractions and gender dysphoria. So you have a right to be part of that. South Africa has something called participatory democracy. It's a concept upon which the Constitution is founded. That means that if there are going to be policies adopted or laws that are going to be passed, as citizens of the country, we have a right to participate and to air our views, and we must use these channels in order to ensure that, in fact, we want to uphold certain beliefs that we have. So, and we have been doing that. Sister Shamshaad will bear us out, Sheikh Shaukat will bear me out, that we've had meetings with the Department of Education, etc., dealing with this specific issue. And the whole idea of us actually using these avenues is very, very important. So I want to emphasize that while the parents has rights, they must also exercise responsibilities in this particular aspect. And then when we look at the rights of children, because we can't only enforce the rights of the parent, children have rights too, and we have to be sensitive to their rights as well. So what are the rights of the children that we have to be very, very aware of? Children have dignity and respect. We must at all times ensure that their dignity and their respect is not stripped away from them. So they have the right to be treated with dignity and with respect. And this is part of Section 10 of the Constitution, which is basically the right to dignity. And what does this mean then? What does it mean that we have the right to dignity? Even the court has found it difficult to give expression and meaning to what is the right to dignity. But it's around what makes you a human being, the fact that so the right to dignity, you'll find, has never been a standalone right. It is a right that is always couched and the basis and the foundation of other rights. So for example, you have the right to life, right? But the right to life is associated with the right to dignity. You have the right to education or the right to adequate housing, both of which are then linked with the right to dignity. So if you look at some of the case law as well, there's never been case law specifically based on the right to dignity, but it is always couched with other rights. So in this particular instance, it would be the child's right to education, coupled with the child's right to dignity within the educational environment that they find themselves in. And it is looking at not only the child as an individual, but the child as part of a community, as part of a community of the school, etc. And then children also have the right to equality and to not to be discriminated against. And again, it's a reference to Section 9 of the Constitution, where every child has the right to be treated equally. So that's where the responsibility of the school comes in. You need to look at all of the children in that school equally. You can't give one preference over the other. But we must remember that what is outlawed by the Constitution is a concept or a term called unfair discrimination. So fair discrimination is allowed, but the courts have developed a test in terms of how we actually arrive at whether the discrimination is fair or unfair, right? Because there are a typical example of what is fair discrimination is the question of when we give advantages, affirmative action, right? Where one particular race group is favored over another because the outcome we want to achieve is equality of outcome, right? But you are actually treating people unequally in that instance. So that is an instance, affirmative action is an instance of fair discrimination. Okay, so unfair discrimination is something that is not allowed, and those are the areas we must be careful about. Then, of course, the schools themselves have rights. Okay, and so the school has the right to operate, if it's a Muslim school, to operate in terms of religious freedom, which is the Section 15 right in the Bill of Rights, and they have the right to operate according to their religious ethos under, as I said, the Section 15 of the Constitution. But remember what I spoke about right at the beginning about constitutional supremacy. So provided that all their actions, all their policies, and all the decisions they take are all in line with the constitutional framework and the constitutional policies. So that's basically the legal framework within which the school operates. And then, of course, the school has the responsibility to create a safe learning environment. So you want to be able to create a safe learning environment for not only the students, for your staff, for everybody, for the school community. So that's your responsibility. And in that, you have certain rights. You will have to take certain steps. You will have to exercise certain rights in order to ensure that you are creating this safe environment. And then, of course, the school community, you know, when the child goes home, is part of a family, which is part of a broader society. So we obviously have broader societal rights as well that needs to be respected. So that particular school community then is part of a much broader community. So we have to espouse to the concepts of non-discrimination. And again, the whole concept of constitutional supremacy is what ensures that we are operating within the constitutional framework at all given times. So in terms of all of these rights that I've just talked about, the key aspect of it is how do we balance those rights? And again, I said that we have one extra hurdle to balance, and that is balancing whatever we have to do in terms of our obligations to the Sharia principles that we are governed by. So that's the sort of legal scenario we find ourselves in terms of the rights debate or the rights discussion.
Yes, Sister Munira, in fact, you know, I'm just getting the feeling that we're barely scratching the surface, and this hour is not going to do justice to what we intend discussing, because there's just a lot more detail to unpack from what you've just said, because it just raises more and more questions. And I'm sure at some point in time, together with Sheikh Dawood and Sister Shamshaad, that we need to obviously have a few more sessions just to dissect and to unpack in a lot more detail, to give us even a more detailed understanding, because it is clear that, you know, there are many practical examples that one can actually use when we apply legislation, when we apply the constitution, and also at the same time looking at this balancing act that you are speaking of. And what I'd like to do when we come back after this ad break is just to look at certain things like, you know, limitations in terms of Muslim schools, in terms of what can they enforce, what can't they enforce. And again, also taking a look, and I know there has been a clear-cut example with regard to teaching about same-sex attraction and gender dysphoria. You know, where do parents come in? Do you require parental consent? All these things are extremely important. But let's just go for a quick break, and we come back and we can address these important issues.
During your 5-star stay, indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042 203 1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic, Sharia, and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Help us build Masjid Hamza in Port Elizabeth. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever builds a mosque for Allah, Allah will build for him a house like it in paradise. Join us in creating a lasting legacy with Masjid Hamza, our current venue where Salah, Hifz, Maktab and vibrant youth programs take place has outgrown its space and is a rental venue. Alhamdulillah, we've secured a new property right behind us. The plans are drawn and the municipality has approved them. Now we need your help to build. Be part of the Siddiqah Ajaria, continuous charity that brings blessings in this life and the year after. Every donation brings us closer to our goal and earns you immense rewards from Allah. Donate generously today. Account name Al-Fida Foundation, Standard Bank, account number 036893382, branch code 051001, reference Masjida Hamza. For more information, contact us at alfida@telcomsa.net.
Conveniently located along the banks of the Crocodile River bordering the Kruger National Park, as a guest at Buckler's Africa Lodge, one can enjoy an amazing sunrise or sunset on our spacious deck area while you catch a glimpse of some wildlife sightings along the Crocodile River. The sounds of the African savannah will greet you whilst you enjoy your morning coffee. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Buckler's Africa Lodge is ideally situated only 6 kilometers from the Crocodile Bridge Gate in the Kruger National Park. Catering for all travelers with variety, we have 4 types of the finest rooms: superior rooms, deluxe suites, and 2-bedroomed family units. Each room is equipped with the finest amenities to make your stay unforgettable. Guests can choose between the self-catering option or book their accommodation with breakfast and dinner included. Buckler's Africa Lodge is your ideal location for the ultimate Kruger getaway experience. We specialize in exhilarating and educational game drives in Kruger, tailor-made to suit your family. Inquire about our various accommodation offerings and other activities. Visit www.tingana.co.za for more information. Buckler's Africa Lodge by Tingana Collection. Experience the pulse of Africa with us.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Marv, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Well,
We're just going to say
well, there we go. Apparently, I've been muted, but welcome back to our listeners and our viewers as well. Sister Munira, and also to you, Sister Shamshaad, Sheikh Dawood as well. Just with your permission, I know we're not going to get through this entire broadcast, and we're not going to be doing justice. We're going to have to do this in 2 parts, and with your permission, hopefully, Sister Shamshaad, if we can set up another session or another broadcast at some point in time to cover the balance of what we need to actually talk about, because there are just so many other issues that one needs to unpack to do justice to the topic. And, we basically, I don't think we've even gone 50% of the way, Sister Munira, in terms of what we need to or we intend discussing. But let's just continue and let's just talk about the issues that are raised before we went into the air break in terms of, limitations that are placed on schools in terms of enforcing certain policies. There are issues like dress codes, and I know outside of the Muslim school, there have been issues with regard to dress codes as well. So again, there are so many issues that one needs to take into account, and it's not only about the limitations, but also in terms of legislation that we have at this point in time. How far does this legislation go as far as teaching about same-sex attractions go? How far does legislation go as far as gender dysphoria is concerned? If you could just unpack some of that for us, please. You need to unmute, Sister Munira.
I did exactly what you did, Brother Inayat. I'm talking and the mic is on. Okay, so let me start off by dealing with the limitations clause. Now, as we said that there's a Bill of Rights in the Constitution that basically lists a whole lot of rights that we are enjoying and that we can claim at any given time, depending on the instance, perhaps when it's violated or whatever, we can take up claims of violations of those rights. Now, in the same breath, what we're saying is that the rights in the Bill of Rights are not absolute. That basically means take the most important right, like the right to life. The right to life is actually limited in terms of, say, a death penalty, right? If we still had the death penalty in South Africa, then it would limit the right to life, right? It's as simple as that. So what the limitations clause is basically telling us is that, firstly, that rights are not absolute. But what Section 36 then does as an instrument in the Constitution is it's saying we allow through Section 36 certain limitations on rights. But in limiting the right, it must be shown and demonstrated that the limitation is in fact reasonable and it is justifiable in an open and democratic society. Now, that's the test that the courts will undertake. So if we then look at the whole question of, say, for example, our Muslim schools wanting to enforce a dress code, right? Our girls would wear a particular uniform, our boys would wear a particular uniform. That can be tested in terms of the limitations clause. And if we are able to show that what we're showing is that, firstly, we have the right to exist as a Muslim school, this is not infringing upon everyone else's rights, and it is reasonable and justifiable in the context, then that's well and good for us. And so similarly like that, if we want to look at the question of separate restrooms, etc., we must be able to, in terms of the limitations clause, be able to justify it in a reasonable manner in an open and democratic society. So that's the key that has been set out and the test that has been set out by the courts following this particular clause in the Constitution. And so this is where that balancing actually happens. So if you look at the competing rights in the context we're talking about, here's a student who is male born, but who identifies as a female and wants to therefore use the female restroom, versus the rights of the school and the other children who are not differently orientated, who follow the binary definition. Their rights are also important. So that's where you see that whole balancing coming into being. Right? Very, very interesting cases on religion that have come before the courts, and I'll just mention two of them. One is Christian Education South Africa versus the Minister of Education. A very interesting case. In this particular case, Christian Education South Africa is an organization that obviously promotes Christian education, and there's a whole lot of schools, Christian schools, that falls under its management and governance. And they were saying that in terms of the Bible, that corporal punishment is allowed, right? And when it came to the balancing, right, very, very interesting question that the court raised. If we do not allow you the right to corporal punishment, does it take away from the Christian religion? So if you do not hit the child, are you minimizing the Christian? Is it one of the intrinsic factors of the religion that we are removing by not allowing you to practice? And the answer was no. Christianity will still be able to survive. Similarly, in the Prince case, obviously, if the Prince case came before the courts now, there would be no problem. But the Prince case is a Rastafarian who was a candidate attorney, and he had qualified, and he was, not qualified, he had graduated, and he was making an application to serve his articles, and there was on record that he is a user of cannabis, and he had many different records against him, and he argued in his application that in fact it's part of his religion, the Rastafarian way of life, that he is allowed to use cannabis. And again, the same question arose. There was even the Pinewood Muslim Society case, where it was about calling the adhan on the loud hailer, not the Durban case. This was in Johannesburg somewhere. And again, they said, if the adhan is not called on a loud hailer at so many decibels or whatever, does it take away? So very, very interesting how the courts are actually approaching this. Now, if these questions around SSA and GD come before the courts in similar situations, the courts are not just going to take one side or the other. They have a duty to look at both sides and to balance in terms of what I'm talking about, which is the limitations clause. And the limitations clause has about 5 different factors that need to be proven before the court in order for the court to say, okay, fine, the right therefore can be limited because it is reasonable and justifiable, etc. And if I may just add to this discussion that we're dealing with many different pieces of legislation here, which is also something we must be very, very aware of. So yes, by and large, we're dealing with the Constitution, and we're dealing with the Bill of Rights in the Constitution and the limitations clause as well. But in addition to that, schools are regulated by the South African Schools Act. So in terms of that, that particular piece of legislation governs admission policies, religious observances, codes of conduct in schools, and basically ensuring that all the activities in a school are aligning with the constitutional principles. Then you have a very interesting piece of legislation. For short, we say PROPUDA, but it's basically the Promotion of Equality and the Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act, which basically aims to prevent discrimination and promote equality in all sectors. And that includes schools and various different parts of society and life. Then there's the Children's Act. Remember, we're dealing with children. They're not yet majors, they're minors, right? So we have to be aware of what is the implication of the Children's Act. It protects the rights of children. So you can't go and do anything where you are now violating the rights of the child. And what this act basically does is it ensures that the best interests of the child are primarily considered at all given times. Then, because the school community is also in the act of employing people, we have to be bound by the Employment Equity Act, the Labor Relations Act, right? And then we're sitting with a lot of personal information about the child, about the child's parents, their finances, the teachers we employ, the various different types of people we employ. We're sitting with a lot of data on personal information. So therefore, we are also bound by the clauses and the sections in the Protection of Personal Information Act. So we mustn't forget, there's a lot of other pieces of legislation besides the Constitution that we are also have to be abiding by and we are regulated by. And I agree with you, Brother Inayat, this topic is it's a minefield. There's lots to cover. Are you correct? We haven't even gone through most of the questions here, but I know that we are limited by time. So, yeah.
Yes, Sister Munira, in fact, like I mentioned, and I said to Sheikh, Sister Shamshaad, Sheikh Dawood as well, that if we can have another session, because I think there are just so many other issues that one needs to talk about. You've just basically scratched the surface, even talking about all these other pieces of legislation in terms of what we need to abide by, and we need to get a bit of a more detailed understanding. But also at the same time, one needs to look at practical considerations. One needs to look at things like counseling, support, policy development. There are many, many issues that one needs to consider. But for that, we will do that on another day, inshallah, Sister Munira, together with your permission as well, and also with the committee. Sheikh Dawood, any comments from your side before I ask Sister Shamshaad for some closing comments as well? Sheikh Dawood? I'm not too sure whether Sheikh Dawood is able to listen to us, Sister Shamshaad. Would you like to come in?
I hope Sheikh Dawood can come on, but I wouldn't have minded continuing if time permitted. Yes, I agree that we need to complete this.
Brother Inayat, Haji Inayat, I cannot hear. I'm not sure whether...
Yes, it appears as if Sheikh Dawood has got a bit of a problem on his side. Possibly it could be a network issue, it could be a signal strength issue as well. I know he is traveling. But Sister Shamshaad, yes, you could perhaps just wrap up for us, inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran Jazilan, Sister Munira. I think this was quite comprehensive, alhamdulillah. We are going to be getting a podcast of this, inshallah, so that people can refer to it. A very vital information that you shared. I still wanted to ask some questions with regard to the changes that
Assalamu
happening.
alaikum, Haji Inayat. I cannot hear.
Okay,
yes,
we need to just... I don't know how we can get through this. Somebody can just message Sheikh Dawood and say if he can unmute himself if it's possible.
I'll WhatsApp him.
All right. So just to say that, yes, there's a lot of vital information that we can share. It's going to be a point of reference and information, inshallah, for all and sundry. And I think this is quite comprehensive. I still wanted to ask about the changes that's happening in the legal aspect in the USA and the UK. There's certain legislation that was passed is going to have a ripple effect in respect of South Africa in any way. So, but we leave that for another program. I think in a month from now, we can plan, Brother and I, to conclude this, or maybe in 2 weeks' time. If with Sister Munira, if she is agreeing, 2 weeks' time, maybe we can complete this section, because it's very, very important, and it should flow rhythmically, inshallah, that we need to conclude this discussion. It is relevant to every single parent, every single child, every single teacher, educator, every single legal professional. So we need to come together and be able to solve this, to complete this. We also want to thank UCSA for setting up the substructure so we can have these discussions historically. It was initiated by Amal and a host of other Islamic organizations, and alhamdulillah, we have a footprint which we are going to use these parameters and we'll be able to discuss these very hard-hitting discussions. People may say, no, don't talk about it, but it's happening. We need to talk about it, we need to find solutions, and we need to place first and foremostly that what Islam stands in is we are against it, but to operate within the legal framework and constitutional framework. So shukran jazilan to Sister Munira, shukran jazilan to Brother Inayat, being the media here, doing a stern, excellent job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from all of us. And may we as a community, as an ummah, guide our youth, guide our elders, because not, as Sister Munira said, it's not just the children. We have far too many cases to mention that is happening with adults as well. So we need to operate as a community, as an ummah, to be able to deal with it and succeed in pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in respect of our lives and needs.
I mean, Jazakallah khairan so much to you, Sister Shamshaad, as well. And we thank you for setting up this broadcast, inshallah. I'm not too sure whether Sheikh Dawood can still hear us. Sheikh Dawood, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Can you hear me, Haji Inayat?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we're just wrapping up basically, and we're just getting some final thoughts from Sister Shamshaad. And what we have been saying is we haven't done justice in an hour, and at some point in time, inshallah, in the next 2 weeks or in the next month, we need to obviously set up another session to cover, comprehensively what we intended discussing today. So, inshallah, we're looking forward to another broadcast in the next few weeks, inshallah. But just some concluding remarks from yourself, please.
Jazakallah khair, Haji Inayat, and Jazakallah khairan to our listeners also for listening in, and to Sister Munira, Attorney Munira Haider Osman. On behalf of the United Ulama Council of South Africa, USSA, I would like to thank her. I would like to thank CII. I would like to thank yourselves. And we ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all, inshallah. And just a few words, the path that we are treading is not going to be an easy path. It's going to be one full of challenges, as Attorney Munira has stated very, very clearly, that we have a constitutional supremacy in the country. And I think a lot of, I'm not a legal person, but I think a lot of this will have to be tested by the courts. But certainly, I think we are standing on very firm ground, if I could interpret what Attorney Munira was telling us today, because we have Section 15 of the Constitution that gives us religious freedom, belief, and thought. And at the same time, she also mentioned that like parents have rights and obligations, the learner also has rights and obligations. And I think in terms of the learner's rights and obligation, if a learner decides or chooses that he wants or she wants to follow a certain path or a certain culture or a certain religion, so I think that according to the Constitution, my layman's interpretation, and that has to be respected. And in terms of religious rights also, I think Islamic schools can put down policy in terms of gender orientation, that because this is intrinsically, and if I hear what Sister Munira is telling me in terms of the court cases, that the judge asked that, would this affect your religious right to practice your religion? And certainly, if a person is not given the choice, and I think in terms of homosexuality, in terms of transgenderism, in terms of lesbianism, all of these things are taboo in Islam. These are transgressions, these are sin in Islam. And certainly it would affect the person who is practicing this religion, and in our case it is Islam. So certainly we have a right. I think in terms of the azan, yes, we can live without the azan being given allowed, but certainly we cannot live allowing ourselves to be intimately engaged with the issues of lesbianism, and in terms of transgenderism, because this is totally against Islam. It's haram. It's forbidden in Islam for us. So I think this is an important point that our listeners need to take home. So that's my little bit there, Haji Inayat. I hope Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the opportunity to meet again, inshallah. And like you said, there will be part 2, and we'll have an opportunity, inshallah, of engaging more on this topic. Jazakumullahu khairan.
Ameen. Jazakallah khairan so much for that, Sheikh Dawood, as well, and also to you, Sister Shamshaad, as well, for putting all of this together, and to Sister Munira Osman, obviously always willing, and alhamdulillah, shared just so much, you've unpacked so much, but a lot more that we can actually benefit in terms of a value add as far as this topic is concerned, and also to the committee under the auspices of the United Ulama Council of South Africa, covering SSA and GD as well. I know a lot of hard work is being done in the background, in the scenes, weekly meetings, and there's just a lot more to this topic than just the discussion we're having from a legal perspective. But inshallah, I'm sure we will be covering a lot more over the next few weeks. But for now, jazakallah to all of you. We thank you for your time. Allah accept, Allah reward your efforts. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum
Jazakumullah
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shukran jazeelan to Salam Media as well.
Shukran. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, that brings us to the end of this special broadcast brought to you by the United Ulama Council of South Africa. And we're looking forward to the second part of this broadcast. And I'm sure there's a lot, but also at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to sit back, to ponder, and personal reflection as to where we are as parents, where we are as schools, where we are in terms of policies in our Muslim schools, where are our educators? And these are challenges. This is a challenge of our time. It's a challenge that together as a Muslim ummah, as a Muslim community, we need to work together. We need to collaborate with each other as well. And it requires the involvement of everyone right across the entire board to actually address, to tackle this issue, but more importantly, to make sure that we don't fall prey to what is actually creeping into society, into our world, and also inside our Muslim homes and Muslim schools as well. So let us not be blind to the fact that this problem doesn't exist. It certainly exists, and I'm sure over the next few weeks, when we talk about counseling, when we talk about some of the practical challenges, a lot more will come out to the fore, and it is our duty as a Muslim ummah to work together to tackle the scourge that has obviously engulfed the entire world. We see it a lot in Western Europe, and it is already crept into South Africa. So with that, I'm going to be signing off once again. Jazakallah for viewing, for listening in, and also for tuning in. And also to all my guests, we do appreciate your time. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.